Think of the career of Tim Minchin for a moment. You know, this first phase where he's writing songs, even love songs, and then comedy songs and performing, building his way up to performing, and getting noticed by uh, Karen Corin, who's important for organizing some kind of Edinburgh festival in Edinburgh for comedy. And this is all his own stuff, right? This is all his. You can feel, in the lyrics what he's trying to, that he has his unique message, and to some degree, I think that his fame and his popularity is tied to the rise of the atheist movement at that time, and yeah, in the early days of YouTube, right, where his performances, his comedy music gets viewed, hundreds of thousands of times over the years, millions of times over the years. And then there's this second stage where from his song, also to his daughter, this drinking white wine in the sun, this kind of same thing, right? This atheist's version of a sort of Christmas song that sort of embraces Christmas, even though you know even though you're atheist. This is not my approach, right? But you can see, like, from these two things, there's this director, Matthew Walkers, who then approaches him to write the musical Matilda. And this is the second phase of his career, where he writes musicals and then becomes an actor later on, when that kind of fizzles out. Well, it didn't quite fizzle out, because very recently the musical movie Matilda came out on Netflix, and for that he wrote a few new songs, and yeah, I mean, this is the pinnacle of his fame, I suppose, until now. It's still, I guess, it's still ongoing, this pinnacle of his fame. But he got rejected for a couple of projects while he was in LA, and so moving from Melbourne, is it, to London to LA, and you can see that also the pattern of the big productions are remakes of stories from other people. It's not his own stuff. This is what shifts from the first phase to the second phase. Also, in the material he's writing, he can't really be as creative as, he can't be the storyteller, but he can write the lyrics for stories already written. Just, can be some sort of storyteller through the music, and you really feel his, or you recognize his contributions to the songs. You can hear them, his style, his lyrics, his message to some degree. But the overarching story being told, of course, is, as with many, many new things being made, it is an old story, just being remade. In this case, Netflix is making a lot of different Roald Dahl pieces, remaking them with directors specifically interested in not not breaking with Roald Dahl's story too much. Even the short films that Netflix put out are literally, the whole text is pretty much unchanged from this actual story by Roald Dahl. So this reminds me, these kind of patterns in the making of the career of someone who we have to, as he narrates his own career, he he says he's self-taught in all these things, in lyricism. He did go, to schools, music, and so on, but and theater. But the art that he writes, or that he comes to collaborate in these projects, he doesn't necessarily have any, hadn't followed any courses in lyricism or any courses in writing musical, or anything like that. And so he, as he likes to portray himself, he kind of breaks with some tradition or other. Um, Same, his recent project on making this song to accompany the 50th anniversary um, of the Sydney Opera House as well. Like there, it's more of his own, message in there, but you can see like the ways in which still like these bigger projects like Matilda and Groundhog Day, where he has to somehow tell the story within the story of Matilda, and people had to go toward him and kind of take him into this world where he had less sort of control of the whole story there. Even though I guess his move, where he's an actor in one of these series, I don't know how much he was involved in inventing this story. Upright, is it? I don't remember. But this series, television series, kind of drama, where he plays one of the two protagonists, right? Father of the daughter and so on. And there, I guess he would have, if he had more of a hand in that. I mean, yes, that would mean he had succeeded quite a bit in telling his own story to the audience. There's a parallel here that I am thinking of in someone with quite an important and strong message to tell, where for years and years you are unnoticed and no one really approaches you about your work and allows you to make it into something bigger, or even for it to get published, to get on the market, right? Is Karl Popper, when the philosopher of science, the political philosopher Karl Popper, when he writes his war book, so to speak, The Open Society and Its Enemies, and tries to get it published, everyone closes the doors on him. Every single person wants nothing to do with it. And he has to flee. Of course, during the war, he saved a few people from the Holocaust, and then has to flee to, he himself being a Jew, has to flee from Austria to New Zealand, is where he chooses to flee. And he has a horrible time there. Like, his life is really bad from his point of view, and he works extremely hard with very little reward, as a small pension. Like, you don't get a lot of money from his position at the university where he teaches and so on. He doesn't get a lot of money, and all his free time he tries to write this book that he then tries to get published, and no one wants it, and so on. And he has one friend called Friedrich van Hayek, who lives in London at the London School of Economics, and is kind of friends with the editors of Routledge, and kind of that's why all his works are published at Routledge. Both Hayek's and Karl Popper's. But Karl Popper's more so. Like, literally all of his works are published there, when they first came out. Those works from the Second World War onward. And because he has this friend who is grateful to in a letter. You can, that's the letter he wrote about this, how much, he appreciates that this aristocrat led him into the the walls of the publishing city or whatever. And thanks to him, he really gets to publish his book, which becomes very influential. But how did it become very influential? First, if he hadn't had Hayek, we wouldn't have Karl Popper, really. Even at an early stage, where that's how Hayek kind of came to know Karl Popper, is within the debate about the philosophy of science in the social sciences. Hayek's famous essays on this topic are, in my opinion, not very well written. They're not extremely well informed, and they're not completely honest. But Hayek was, I guess, good natured enough to be interested in what Karl Popper has to say on this, and Karl Popper took up what Hayek says. Hayek took up what Karl Popper says, I think, more so than the other way around. And this made him friends with Karl Popper, and then developed this into, Karl Popper being rejected from kind of the friendship group of the Vienna Circle, being kind of rejected by everyone as in his own view, but then gets to publish at Routledge because of Hayek. Again, the point being, like, someone with privilege can take you in as a creative writer. Karl Popper certainly, writes nonfiction, but still, like, his works are really original, were really honest at the time. They're not particularly, wordy. He's pretty clear in his style. He has also, when he speaks English, he has a very, Austrian accent in speaking. Or as Tim mentioned, as this native speaker of Australian English from the country of exile, right? In a sense. So these things make me reflect on how to build up, how to build up your creative writing career to actually get accepted into this group, into this aristocracy of people who can publish, especially if your ideas are not necessarily, Tim mentioned is, I think, it would have been, I think, impossible 10 years before to do what he did, and I think now, maybe 10 years later, it would just be just as impossible for someone with the same message as Tim mentioned, or maybe waiting 5 years more or 10 years more, you wouldn't have the same Tim Minchin being able to climb the echelons, right, like that. Whereas Karl Popper, I think, at his time had it even harder. He didn't have any opportunity